wanted the best, you got them 4 abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them. Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God! Oh! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, here we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Hello and welcome to week number 2 of the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge. Tonight we head to Oulton Park for a very, very interesting night of racing. 30 minutes of racing ahead for the drivers once again tonight around this amazing short British circuit. My name is Jay Kennedy. Alongside me in the booth is Brock Cat-Eye Brock. It's going to be a really, really cool night of racing. We've seen some great racing throughout the week this week, and qualifying on at the moment is proving to be a little bit of a surprise packet with some interesting names at the front of the field right now.
Good evening, everybody, and good evening, Jay. Yeah, it is interesting there. Susan Harlow was on top, and he's currently actually second in the world record list for the TCR Audi around this particular layout of Oulton Park. But right now being beaten out by Corey Preston and Ross Balfour. We saw Corey last week. He had a bit of pace at him, but just some bad luck. So be interesting to see how he goes this week. But also, I've just got to say quickly, the TCR cars at this Oulton Park track are awesome. It's like the track and the car were made for each other, the way this car handles around here. So it'll be interesting to see how these guys handle it and how well the car comes on in the first part of the race. You yourself mentioned just before the broadcast, cold tyres will be a talking point, particularly in those early parts.
Yeah, 100%. The cold tyres will be very, very crucial. We're seeing already the second lap is proving so much quicker as Dave Roberts goes to second. Jackson Susan Harlow has pipped Corey Preston back to take that first position away. Bo Albert's moved into third. We'll watch this lap here from Ross Balfour and see if he can move up the timesheets, and then we'll check on Corey Preston as well. As Balfour comes up to the line and he goes to the top of the timesheets. Great lap there, and that's P1 for Ross Balfour. What does Corey Preston do? He crosses the line. No big improvement there. He stays in goes to third position. Who's next? Let's watch Scott Larnack. He's about to come up to complete his second lap. No, Scotty McQueen will be first, actually. See what he can do. He's actually done very well this week, Scotty McQueen. I've seen him in a couple of races and definitely punching above his weight.
Yeah, the times we're seeing at the top of this timesheet here are quite literally top 10 in the world times in qualifying. So we're seeing some of the best pace that these guys have to offer, and that the best drivers on iRacing at the moment in these TCR cars have to offer. So this is really cool to see as we're watching Scotty McQueen come across the line. He'll come across in fourth there, but the competition, Tim Greben and Jackson Susan Harlow are on exactly the same time to the 1,000th of a second. That is immense. You can see on the timing sheet there, 0.075, which means it came down to less than a 1,000th of a second for these guys on the start-finish line. Think about that. That's about a fingernail if they were racing side by side. And this is what we come to see from this TCR racing. And, you know, the gaps aren't too bad there as well through the top 10. So I'm really interested to see how some of these guys go. I know a few of them have gotten off tracks on their qualifying laps as well, which has meant their laps probably aren't quite as indicative as what we would expect. So it'll be interesting to see if some of these guys do have to fight through the pack to make it work for them.
Larnack moves into 10th on his lap. The only driver to not put in a lap time, David Lord, who is off the circuit. And Simon Mazoma actually has already run his 2 laps, so he is done. Qualifying is done, but before we get into the race, this is the conditions these are the conditions, if I could speak properly English. A 30-degree track temp, so a little bit cooler than what we saw last week. Beautiful out there in regards to air temp at 19.1 degrees. A little bit of wind out there, so it won't affect the drivers too much. But the big talking point I've heard as well from drivers is the run up to the hairpin. We're running the international layout, so we don't run the full circuit. We cut off before the big sweeping left-hander into the really intense hairpin, the Dunlop hairpin, halfway around the lap. We actually stop halfway through where the chicanes are and do a U-turn there. That's the hairpin point there. So a different layout from what we would normally see in our broadcast here on SimSpeed TV. Not a commonly used track, one that is more used for these style of cars. And as you said before, this track is perfect for these cars.
It really is, and I'm not sure exactly what it is about these cars that lends itself to such great racing, but doing some laps here early in the week myself, the car just flows beautifully through here, particularly once those tyres come up to temperature. So I really feel like we're in for a treat. There are a couple of really good overtaking opportunities where I feel like we'll see some good racing, and I think on the topic of cold tyres, the biggest issue we might see is coming out of the final turn and down the main straight there. You come over a kink, and then you've got to try to get your car straightened up, but the car wants to wheel spin. And those front tyres, when they're cold, they wheel spin. You're going straight ahead. We have talked about it before in terms of going on the dirt and that sort of thing. Here, Oulton Park has a lot of undulation. It's a very hilly circuit, which makes it very interesting. But equally, will be hard for those guys out on the track, which makes me very glad I'm here in the comms box with you, Jay, and not out there.
Yeah, it's going to be a very, very fun race. We'll quickly run through our 18-car grid for this race. Ross Belfer and Jackson Susan-Harlow on row 1 with Tim Greven and Scotty McQueen row 2. Corey Preston, who's currently 20th in the World Championships, World Championship standings at the moment. 3 drivers in our top 5 in the top 25 in the World Championship at the moment. It's great to see. Dave Roberts in 6th, Bo Albert in 7th, Daniel Edmonds in 8th. We've got Michael Kirkham, Gavin Sadler, Scott Larnack, James Foster, Phil Reed, Mitchell McLeod, David Haynes, Daniel Brown, and then David Lord and Simon Mazzomo rounding out our 18-car field. Only got one driver left to take to the grid before we get this race underway. And as we said, not a very long run to get up to the green flag. So they've really got to work the tyres at work the tyres on this lap to really get as much heat in as they can. We saw last week the drivers that couldn't get enough and generate enough heat early on really struggled. You can see straight away, already massive wheel spin trying to get heat into the tyres.
That's it. And like you said, it's a very short run. Obviously, iRacing with some of the newer tracks have implemented this system where they only start about 3/4 of the way through the lap. But you can see everyone's weaving, braking, ducking back and forth, trying to get some heat into these tyres because that safety car, it's quite literally about to zoom down the road and pull off. So they're trying to do whatever they can to make these cars as drivable as possible. So we're coming up to the to the last turn of the circuit here. And apologies to viewers, it is the island circuit, not the international circuit. We've had one of our viewers point that out to us. So now, as we get ready to go for the race here, Susan Harlow is out in front there, but shouldn't be, as we watch Ross is coming up. Now we're green flag racing. Great start from Ross there. He has absolutely jumped the pack. Susan Harlow's got to watch out for Tim Greven behind him there as they come down into turn 1. This will be very interesting on cold tyres. Who is willing to make some moves here and see what we can do? Everyone's pretty clean. Bo Albert is looking like he's trying to make some moves, but he'll slot back in behind. Very clean start through turn 1 there.
Yeah, great to see. We've seen a few wrecks throughout turn 1 this race, but it looks like all the drivers did a lot of work to generate as much heat as they could in the tyres. But Bo Albert, Daniel Edmonds, side by side, coming up to the hairpin. This is going to be the toughest section on the track. Bumps, heavy braking, and Gavin Sadler's had a big moment trying to get out of the way. Almost run into the tail. He's going to drop all the way back to last. We've had one driver not take the grid, which is David Lord, but it is on in the middle of that pack. Oh, I've got an incident back in the field. Scotty McQueen in the wall. Simon Mazzomo slow. We've got Michael Kirkham involved as well. And I think that'll need a modem simulation replay.
I think you're very right there. That's an interesting one there, Jay. So we'll have a look at our modem simulation replay here. So we're on board with Michael Kirkham, who looks like he unloaded Sadler there, who's gone off wide. It's just a bit of a mess here. So we see Larnack, I think it was, off on the very edge of the circuit there, who just he's squeezing a little bit and gets tapped into the wall, comes back across and hits another couple of guys. So just a little bit messy all round there in the end, unfortunately. And those cold tyres really wreaking havoc at the hairpin.
biggest mover at the moment. Mitchell McLeod, he's up into 7th. Started in 14th, he's into 7th. I mean, it's no surprise that Mitchell McLeod's made spots, but that's incredible. On 1 lap, 7 spots. So well done to Mitchell. But it's on for our 2nd and 3rd place. Tim Greven right behind Jackson Susan Harlow. We know these guys are going to be evenly matched for pace. We saw that in qualifying.
That's exactly it. So these guys, they're going to provide us with, I hope, a really interesting battle through this half an hour sprint race that we've got going on here. And Ross Balfour at the front there isn't really running away with this at the moment. So there is still a chance. Oh, he's at a little moment there, actually, coming out of the hairpin. So now 1, 2, 3, nose to tail. Susan Harlow looking very racy there. He's got to run, but he's going to have to make a work around the outside here with the chicane coming up. If he gets on the brakes hard enough, he might be able to make this work. No, he's going to get back in behind.
Oh, little bump.
Hits Balfour. Trying to get him through the chicane. He's going, hello, I'm here, Morse code. It is on for the lead.
Great little battle here. This is going to go for the next 27.5 minutes too. You can feel it. These guys are going to continue to have this fight. Tim Greven's just happy there watching these guys fight. And Susan Harlow making a move up the inside. This is going to be tough. He gets chopped off a little bit there from Balfour with a little bit of a better run. These three have been able to make a little bit of a gap too. You can see that Corey Preston is about 1.5 seconds back. Mitchell McLeod is also right on the tail of Boa, but he's got some really good pace. He's not too far off the leaders in regards to pace at the moment. But these front three, I should say, have broken a decent margin. And they're still fighting a big weaving there from Balfour, and Susan Harlow had to slam the brakes on.
That is, that's defensive. I'm not going to lie to you. That's on the borderline blocking there, but that's all right. That's what we come here for, and that is hard racing, and we love it. So Balfour right now, that was some big bumps Susan Harlow took from those quite bumpy and uneven curbs. So now he's got a bump drafting Greven right behind him, trying to make something work here. Won't happen. Balfour, we'll see if he makes the same mistake. He has again!
Oh, again!
How could you make that mistake again now?
Oh, no!
He's going to block! Oh, he's in the wall! He's hit Susan Harlow! Oh, that is... Oh, really? That was not necessary there. This is such a long race. Susan Harlow has kept going. But Greven is our new leader there, and Balfour, I think, has kept putting along at the back there.
Wow, that was just a bizarre incident. And Greven, as you said, just saw David Haynes have a little bit of a loop. Managed to keep it going. But yeah, Tim Greven now leads the race, and we need another look at that because that was just crazy. We saw the bump draft beforehand, and then another mistake exactly the same there from Balfour. He just nearly looped it around again, and then just... Susan Harlow already had overlap, and Balfour's just come across. And Corey Preston had nowhere to go, just absolutely slammed into Jackson Susan Harlow. Watch this from Preston. Had nowhere to go.
Yeah, poor guy. He's been racing phenomenally in the TCR series, I think, and he's just minded his own business and bang right into him. That would have scared the living daylights out of him, I think, coming right across his nose like that. But yeah, really unfortunate. He is still in second, but it looked like he might have been sporting some real damage there too.
Well, Albert also looks like he's got a little bit of damage to the front of his car from that incident too. And Mitchell McLeod right there, and Dave Roberts is just ahead as well. So this is a really big 4-car battle for our last 2 spots on the podium. Albert looking up the inside, and Roberts has made a mistake. He's going to lose 2. Drop from 3rd back to 5th, and McLeod might be able to capitalise on this too.
Oh, McLeod is hunting. Look at him. He has been just on the back of people this whole race, looking, waiting for them to make mistakes, and he's making up position. Right now he's plus 10, and we're, on lap 4 of this race with about 17 to go. This is ridiculous pace from him. It's working so well, and he's not letting Bo Albert run away from him either.
2.3 seconds the lead at the front for Tim Greven. It'll be interesting to see if Jackson Susan Harlow can come back. I'm wondering though if Jackson Susan Harlow possibly has a meatball flag, because last lap by, the lap time didn't actually register, so there's potentially some sort of issue there for Susan Harlow other than just the damage that he's got. Phil Reed's going to make a move here up the inside into the final corner, and Reed is through and will take 8th position away, and it looks like Balfour and Susan Harlow are going to continue their fight, and this could be very interesting here.
Yeah, don't expect Susan Harlow to give an inch to Balfour after that incident. I reckon there might be the old red mist descending, and I think that both of these guys will be sporting a bit of damage. It looks like Susan Harlow has come off worse in the end there. He's got a bit of damage quite to the front left there, quite a bit of damage actually. So Be interesting to see how these guys go. This is going to be very interesting as we come down to the hairpin. Very good overtaking opportunity, but also can be very dangerous if you outbrake yourself. Balfour's looking around the outside here. He's got to be careful not to lock those rears like he has been. And Susan Harlow just happens to miss the apex and bump into Balfour there. Who knows whether that was a breaker lock up or not, but this is some very intense racing.
This is going to continue. You can tell that this little battle here is going to keep going for the next few laps as Susan Harlow holds on to the position for now. But you think that it might not take too long considering the pace difference between these two at this current stage. Have a look at the gap that Phil Reed's already taken on these guys. 2.1 seconds in half a lap since he got past Jackson Susan Harlow. So these two guys were the leaders. They're fighting like they're still the leaders, but they're a long way back from the lead of the race now.
Yeah, this is no longer about leading a race, I rating or safety rating. All this is about is pride, basically. So these guys, they're going to battle it out to the end, to the ends of the earth, I think.
Oh, another bump!
That has put Susan Harlow wide there. So yeah, this is look, this isn't the best quality racing. You know, these guys, they need to be a little bit cleaner about it, but that's now released some of the field behind them to go for it. Whoa! Number 17 dive bombs the number 1 there. So
oh no!
Oh, come on, guys. Let's try keep it a little bit clean. So yeah, Balfour involved in another incident. Then the number 17 of Scotty McQueen made a huge dive on Balfour, which honestly was a little bit unrealistic, I think, from that far back, and has spun him. And then McQueen has gone round as well. So a little bit unfortunate there. Just a little bit messy, I think, coming out of that turn 1.
Yep, and also seen Jackson Susan Harlow has pulled off the circuit. He is no longer in the race, I believe. As you said before, he's had a meatball flag. He wasn't able to get into the pits just based on where he was on the circuit. And he now is out of this race, unfortunately. So he's going to have to look for another chance to gain a big chunk of points because there are some big points on offer right now. One of the highest point scoring races in the world this time slot right now. McLeod and Albert are continuing to go at it. They've dropped Dave Roberts since his little mistake. He's already, they've already pulled 1.6 seconds, and Albert and McLeod have both caught up to Corey Preston. So this is going to be a really interesting battle between these three for the 2 podium spots.
And these three are, if you will, they're household names in Australian sim racing. I've just jumped on board with Corey Preston because he has got slight left-hand down steering damage. So he is struggling, I think, a little bit with some steering damage on board that Audi TCR car, unfortunately, which will make him a little bit slower. And also with any sort of aerodynamic damage, he does lose some grip. So I feel like hopefully we'll see a nice, clean, good battle between Preston, Albert and McLeod coming into the next 20 minutes of this race. And we've seen already McLeod has made awesome progress, plus 10 positions. In fact, all these guys, plus 3, plus 4, and plus 10 going Preston, Albert, McLeod. So they've all made great ground, and now it's all on for who can get to the second step of that podium. In the meantime, Tim Greven is out ahead of the pack, streaming away while he can.
Don't forget, we've got live timing available at our new easy-to-find web link, simspeed.live. All you have to do is type that in to your web browser, and that'll bring up the live timing for this race and all of our races here on SimSpeed TV. So make sure you do check it out and keep up to date with everything that's happening on and off the circuit, because we're now seeing 3 drivers off the track. Scotty McQueen, after that incident before, is off the circuit as well. So unfortunate for him. So the gap at the front between these guys, 3.5 seconds. So well and truly a huge gap now. Balfour trying to make his way back through the field after that incident. He's coming up on David Hames and Gavin Sadler. Love the sound of these guys on the limiter up into the final corner there. That's pretty cool to see. Very, very cool sounds.
Yeah, the TCR cars are very unique in the way they sound and the way they drive. Obviously, front-wheel drive very different from most things we have on the service. So David Haynes, it looks like he might have just let Balfour by there. Probably knows that Balfour's got a bit more pace than him. Haynes just racing his own race. Very smart move. Haynes is already plus 3 positions on where he is, so just keep chipping along. Don't get involved in any battles you need to. Play the long game in a sprint race, as weird as that sounds. But yeah, these Audi TCR cars are really awesome pieces of machinery and very different, which makes them even better to watch from our point of view, and hopefully for you guys as the viewers at home too.
This lap, Corey Preston's actually made some inroads into the lead of the race and dropped Bo Albert and Mitchell McLeod. So Preston has some good pace right now. The gap at the front now down to 3 seconds. So he's gaining a fair bit of time, and he's pretty much broken the draft from Bo Albert. It's now a second back. So this is the closest battle at the moment between Albert and McLeod. But these guys are going at it pretty hard. It's good to see, and the pace is very, very good at the front of the field.
It definitely is. These tyres are sticking with it and probably starting to finally get into a really good operating window for these guys. As Albert runs just a little bit wide onto the dirt there. Excuse me, McLeod, I thought might get a run, but Albert actually recovered pretty well from that and got it back onto the black stuff so he could get some momentum out of there. Really cool. Turn 1 is such a great turn there, the way you got to maintain that speed but not go too wide to avoid, excuse me, that off track there. So Albert a little bit wide, he really is using all the track here to maximize the car that he's got underneath him. So I'll be really interested to see if McLeod can actually catch up at the moment, because it looks like he's not being held up too much by Albert, but in the meantime Preston is running away with this in second place at the moment.
Last lap by Corey Preston set the fastest lap of the race too. The first lap in the 1 minute 26 bracket, 26.9. So a good lap there from Corey Preston. Saying that, Tim Grevin's come back at him on this lap. We go back in the field a tiny little bit while those guys continue to battle. We'll continue to battle on the timesheets. This is our closest little fight right now. Daniel Edmonds and James Foster. So separated by 0.3 of a second at the moment. Foster is up 5. Edmonds only up 2. In saying that, only up 2 in this race. It's an only, but for most races, you'd be pretty happy to be up 2 spots.
I definitely would be. I'm pretty happy if I make it up, 0 spots or 1. So
I'm happy if I don't lose a spot.
Yeah, exactly. So 2 spots, I think most guys get a bit of I rating, bit of safety rating. They'll be pretty happy with their efforts. So, yeah, it's good to see. And these guys, you know what, as long as they come out here and enjoy the racing that they're doing, that's the main thing. So Edmonds is, he's out in front at the moment, and he's got Foster and Reed right up behind him there, which is a nice little battle pack for 6th, 7th and 8th. And all 3 of these guys have gained some positions in this race, which is good. So, right now, Edmonds has a little bit of a gap. Foster behind him, though, is almost under attack by Reed. Reed's probably not quite close enough at this point of the circuit to throw a move down the inside, but if he sets it up nicely, might be able to get a good run down into the hairpin and have a go. He actually made up a bit of time there through what you call the parabolica, and he's using that draft well, but won't be able to get it done. It's a really short little stint between that parabolica and the hairpin there. So right up on behind there, but again, you need that side-by-side momentum to really make the most of a move into the chicane. This middle sector of the circuit is interesting. He's having a look, but will pull back in behind. Probably a smart decision there to avoid any incidents. Good, smart driving by these guys.
Yeah, pace from Phil Reed quite good at the moment too. So last lap by, he set his fastest lap of the race and only the second driver into the 1 minute 26 bracket. So Reed is well and truly on a charge as well, plus 5 positions from his qualifying spot. I'll tell you what, the pace that he's got at the moment, it could be plus 6 in the next couple of corners because he looks really good right now. Wouldn't be surprised to see a move at the hairpin up here.
I think so. He's got the pace at the moment and he looks so strong. Foster goes a little bit defensive there. Holds the middle of the track. Very good defensive technique. But now, look at that from behind. Reed's looking for ways to get by. He's hunting for space. But Foster, not willing to give it up at the moment. Reed's going to try to throw it down the inside at turn 1. The car gets a little bit sideways there. Foster is still on the outside there. Might be able to hang it out here. He's willing to. He's going to try.
Oh, good
but
move.
He's going to have to relent the position. No! Oh, well done. Great racing. Nice and clean. That is how it should be done. And now Reed through on Foster, but a really good exchange through turn 1, 2 and 3 there.
Great little battle between those guys there. But it might not be over here. A late look there from James Foster, having a very, very late look, but he's lost all the momentum. And now he's going to lose a fair bit of ground. So that is move done there for Phil Reed. He will shuffle on to the back of Daniel Edmonds. You'd guess at the pace, looking at the pace he's got at the moment. So we'll see how long it takes him to close up. Gap at the front is extended once again. Last lap by Grevin and Preston pretty much matched lap times at the lap previous. Grevin was able to pull a bit of a margin back, and have a look at who's closing the gap back up again. We said before it was a second, it's back down to half a second again, and McLeod and Albert pretty much every lap have matched their lap times right now.
That's exactly it. It's really good to see. McLeod started so far back, but he does have the pace of some of these lead cars. Preston has some issues there. He just went a little bit wide coming out of that final kink, and now Albert, just to divert there, is actually right back up on the back of him. So whatever happened there has now brought Albert back into this. And we've got to remember, McLeod isn't too far behind. So yet again, this battle pack for second, third, and fourth is well and truly on. Preston looks to be struggling a little bit with his car. I guess that goes back to that damage I was talking about earlier. The car will not be as nice to drive, but he's doing an absolutely masterful job of putting in consistent fast laps every lap.
Yeah, Preston's last lap by was a 1:28, so that's 1.1 seconds off his best in comparison to McLeod and Albert, who pretty much matched their fastest laps of the race. So, and Grevin at the front of the field did his fastest lap of the race. So, Preston may be in a little bit of trouble. Maybe he's just put too much into the tyres and they started to go away already. He might have overworked them a bit. It'll be interesting to see in the next couple of laps how this plays out. With 12 minutes left on the clock, we're looking at about 9.5 laps of racing left. Nice short races here in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge, the TCR series here on iRacing. Of course, the newest addition to the iRacing service. Of course, there's some more new additions coming in the next couple of days. Tomorrow or later tonight, the update to the Charlotte Rover with the newer chicane. Should be quite fun to drive on. Not going to miss those sausage curbs at the exit of the chicane or through that chicane. Be much nicer with the new chicane.
You know, I did not know that was coming, but that is some really great news. As a big NASCAR fan, and also for these Audi TCR cars, they don't like curbs, so having no curbs at the Rover will definitely help them if they get around to racing there. So, yeah, it's iRacing do a great job to always keep adding content for all of us, whether you're road, dirt, oval, whatever you like, there's always something to race, which is really, really cool. So, Preston has actually eked out that gap just a little bit more, so it must have just been a bad lap or a slowdown or something that that sort of plagued him for that one lap, but now he's starting to pull that back out again. His last lap was over a second faster than that of his previous lap before that, and also has been on par with Tim Grevin in the lead there too, so he's gotten that pace back under control.
Phil Reed's right on the tail of Daniel Edmonds now. Last lap by was about 4/10 quicker, so he's starting to close in, and now well and truly within striking range, so he might be able to get a move done. Maybe we'll see it at the same spot again. The run up into turn one looks like it might be the spot. Seen a few more moves at turn one than what I'd seen earlier in the week. There was a lot of moves into the hairpin and a lot of moves at the final corners. There's almost contact between the two there. That was some good driving and great work to not make contact there between those two.
This is a mega pace from Phil Reed. Whatever he has fed that car, it is firing on all cylinders at the moment, and he as a driver is firing on all cylinders. He's looking for overtakes left, right, and centre at the moment. I don't know if he'll be close enough because he was too close to really make anything work out of that last turn. But look at the amount of time he's gaining through the turn there. That is immense compared to Edmonds in front of him. That is so impressive. But we'll watch and see here, because if he gets a good run, he kind of goes out a little bit wider, maybe going for a late apex, try and absolutely swing the car in and get a great run out of there. Again, short run here, doesn't really get the best advantage of the draft, and he might have to pull it back in a bit. But look, under brakes there, he gains so much. He's obviously got that late race pace, whether the tyres are activating now, got a bit more tyre available to him than other drivers around him. He is racing very, very well at the moment. So this is really cool to see. We'll wait and see into the chicane here. If you look up in front, Dave Roberts is not that far away. So Phil Reed is +6 at the moment, but he's looking at a +8 by the time this race ends if he can get past Edmonds in front of him and start chasing down Roberts.
There's every chance that'll happen too. There's still a fair bit of racing left. Still 10 minutes of racing, still a third of this race to go. And at 4/10 of a second, he's not as close as he was on the previous lap. But he looks very, very strong. Does Phil Reed just can't quite nail the pace at the right time to get that move done. As you said, he probably got too good a run out of that final corner on the previous lap. We'll see, he's a little bit further back now to start this, and Dave Roberts is vulnerable. Now he looks under a bit of pressure here too, so this is going to be a really interesting little fight here between these three. Speaking of a three-car battle, have a look at this now. It's on between our second, third and fourth place cars, all separated by 7/10 of a second. This is getting really, really dicey between these three, all evenly matched for pace. Have a look at the lap time last time by for Albert and McLeod, separated by 1,000th of a second.
And crucially, Preston 4/10 slower than both of these guys. So something isn't quite right with Preston's car. His pace is varying a little bit too much, whereas Albert and McLeod, I mean, we've been watching them. They've pretty much been line astern like this for the better part of the last 10 laps of this race. So they're really equal on pace. So right now their main aim is catch Preston. And I can tell you, Preston, he will want to stay in second place and prove that even after a bit of an incident there, he's got what it takes to fight it with these big guns up the top here. And he himself is obviously a big gun in the V8 Scops community, in a few of our other Australian communities. So he's doing really well at the moment. But he's just got to hold out for another 6 laps if my JRT is reading correctly, another 8 minutes, which I can't believe how quick this race has flown by.
It has flown by. It's gone so quick. It's been thoroughly entertaining as well. We've got battles the whole way through the field. We're coming back to this battle here. Reed now finally has a look. It's taken him 2 and a bit laps, and he might have finally got this move done. Phil Reed through, and now into position number 6. And now he's going to try and hunt down Dave Roberts to try and take 5th position away. He started in 13th and is now into 6th. Only Mitchell McLeod is up more positions than he is in this race. So good job from Phil Reed. His pace looks really, really good. It would have been interesting to see how well he would have run if he had a bit better of a qualifying, because his pace could have put him right up in this battle right here. Oh no, we've got an incident back in the field though. Foster and Brown have come together through turn 2. And they've just rejoined the track. Gavin Sadler will go through on Daniel Brown. We'll try and pick up what's happened. Just a moment, make sure they get through the hairpin okay. Sadler will also go through.
That hairpin always makes it look a little bit dodgy, yeah, with guys going 2x2 through there. It's always a bit dodgy, and they're side by side with Foster and Sadler at the moment as well, I believe it is. So this will be interesting. Who's going to yield here?
Oh no.
Oi, that's... Wow, right.
Oh no.
There's been contact as well between 3 of the drivers in all of that. So that chicane there, it's one line only realistically, and you just can't fit 2 cars, particularly through that second left-hander. And just up ahead here as well, you've got a few of the other guys going at it as well. Daniel Brown here is fighting hard at it, and nearly contact between he and the number 7 of Scott Larnack, who's fighting his way back up through the pack here at the moment. This is some intense racing here. We will get back to that replay, folks.
There it is.
There it is, yep. And secondary contact there too through the parabolica, and that's pretty much a night over, I reckon. Those cars are not going to be any fun to drive.
No, not at all. Not going to get a replay, unfortunately, of the other part of the incident. We're going to come back. Though to Phil Reed, have a look how close he is now. Already within 1 lap, he's right on the tail of Dave Roberts. So this is going to be on. McLeod is also pretty close to Bo Albert, not quite this close though. And Daniel Edmonds has also hung on here too. So this is a real tight battle. 4.5 laps left. There's some great fighting. This track has been perfect for these cars.
Well, that's exactly it. I don't know what it is about it, but it just lends itself to TCR racing and this front-wheel drive style of racing, touring car racing in general, which is awesome. And you know what? Phil Reed, his late game pace is awesome. And this is the great part about this new tyre model, is that it allows for strategy. And look at him, he's so close coming through this final sector. He's looking left and right. Can I make a move? Not going to work. Watch his run here. If he gets a good run here, that last turn, he made it work on Edmonds. Can he make it work? A little bit wide there. Number 13 of Roberts is going to defend very hard into the final turn there. They're side by side. Oh, that is close. Roberts will feed him out just a little bit there. So, Reed will have to cut back in, but will he be able to make a move down at turn 1? Roberts is pretty determined to keep this position here. Reed having a look. He'll throw it down the inside at turn 1 here. Very nice and clean there. Roberts runs a little bit wide, and now that gives Edmonds an opportunity, but he won't be able to take full opportunity there. And we'll just have to cut back in behind, I think. Great racing again by this little pack. We've been keeping an eye on all race.
Yeah, good little battle there for Phil Reed. Through again. Great job from him. And McLeod now starting to make a little bit of an impact here in the Bo Albert. Starting to look at making a move. Not quite close enough yet, but Albert's feeling a bit of pressure from behind right now.
He is. I think the focus will have shifted through into the rear mirror. You know, we've got next time round 3 laps to go, I believe. So if McLeod wants to make a move and run away with a podium position, it's got to be in the next couple of laps, really, as Bo Albert just has a little bit of a flash on his screen there. That's going to unnerve McLeod a little bit, but McLeod's car is just looking more planted and racier. Forgive my English there, but he's looking better prepared to make a move than what Bo Albert is to defend that move. And McLeod throws it down the inside, won't make it work there, but oh man, he is playing that mind game big and strong at the moment, trying to force a mistake from Albert and take that position through mind force and not physical force.
3 laps to go, 3.5 minutes left on the clock. Not much racing left in this one. And what that little battle's doing, it's enabling Corey Preston to get a little bit of breathing room up ahead. Tim Grevin, we always say that if you're not getting much TV time at the front of the field, you've had a good race because you're dominating. He's had no TV time at the moment. He's out in front by 5.5 seconds right now. Preston second, Albert third, McLeod fourth, and there's a little bump between them there and another bump. Oh, McLeod redresses that straight away. He knew that he bumped a little bit too hard, and they're going to go at it again between these two.
Good on him. That was a fair move there by McLeod to redress that and not keep on racing. That's good sportsmanship, like we saw last week at Laguna Seca between a few of the drivers. Good stuff.
There's a secondary little bump there. Albert may have been able to save it before that second little bump, but the second bump sent Albert around, and good job from McLeod to redress that move, and they'll go at it again. And Albert will be pretty happy to battle like that. He'll know now that he's going to be in a fair fight. He knows that it'll be a competitive fight, but he knows it's going to be fair, knowing that McLeod will redress a position if he makes a mistake.
That's it, and we know Bo loves an absolute fight on track, and he loves it when there's a fair fight but a hard fight. So this, I think after this race, he'll be happy to be, they might have lost a bit of time to Preston, but as long as they've had a good hard fight at it, that's the main thing. And in the end, McLeod here has lost a little bit of time as well to Bo, so we've got 2 laps to go this time round by the looks of it. So McLeod has really got to channel in his inner hard red mist racer and see if he can catch up to the back of Albert and try another move there. And unfortunately, when you bump these cars, they get a bit unloaded, and it's that second bump. They're already light on the rear end because of the no drive, and it's just cold rear tyres for the most part. So that second bump would have unloaded him, unfortunately. But he's still pretty close to the hairpin. Not close enough for a move, but he's definitely got a bit of pace on him there.
And Preston also has made a mistake on that last lap too, because he's now back almost in draft range. Last lap by Preston, a 1 minute 29.3, a 129.9 for Albert, and a 130.0. You can understand Albert and McLeod's slow lap, but Preston was the 3rd slowest driver in the entire field. Only driver slower were McLeod and Albert. Doesn't make sense. He should be a mile in front, but he's just lost 2 seconds. He shouldn't even be within reach. He's only 1 mistake away from losing a podium spot.
Well, that's exactly it. These guys, they like I said, they should be miles away. They lost a good couple of seconds in that little exchange there, but Preston's struggling. Yeah, in the braking zone there for the final turn, he was the rear end was wiggling underneath him. So something in that car isn't quite the way he'd want it coming to the very back end of this race. But we have crossed the line for the very last lap of this race here after what's nearly been 30 minutes of racing, unbelievably. So Bo Albert looks to have 3rd place fairly well locked down at the moment, but you never know. These cars on their tyres, they may just be a little harder to control than the start of this race. So we'll wait and see. I think this is just about the closest action we've got on track at the moment as well, Jay.
Well, actually, back in the field a little bit. Daniel Brown's lost the spot to Scott Larnack, and now under pressure from Michael Kirkham, who's trying to come through as the clock officially hits 0. So this is now the end of the race, and Tim Grevin will take the win unless something bizarre happens. But you can never say never in these sort of races, because there's always a possibility of something bizarre happening. We've seen it before. We've seen it too many times that something bizarre can happen in these races. Preston, Albert and McLeod. That gap between Preston and Albert is a lot closer than it was the lap previous. Again! What's going on here?
Preston, I think, whether he's gone into cruise mode to make it home because he was making a couple of mistakes, or whether that car has just had it for this race, I don't know. But it looks like if he makes it through this final turn here, he'll be able to maintain this second place, which has been a hard-fought one after that contact as well. So we've got Tim Grevin, who's crossed the line here. Corey Preston will come across in 2nd place. Then we will have 3rd is Bo Albert, and 4th Mitchell McLeod after that long race. Preston does a big old drift through turn 1 there, and we've got the rest of the field coming across the line there too, with Roberts and Edmonds almost coming across side by side as well. So a great little race that one.
Great little battle there between Kirkham and Daniel Brown. Kirkham just misses out on getting that spot in the end. Mazomo and Sadler. Unfortunate for Sadler, he deserved a lot better than 15th place in that race.
Yeah, it all came from some of those unfortunate happenings on lap 1, and then a bit further in the race. It was just he was pretty much the pinata, as well as a couple of other guys in this race, and just kept getting hit for candy. So I don't think any of the drivers really got what they wanted from it. But our whole field has finished up the race now, so we'll run through the results here tonight. So number 1, unfortunately, he didn't get too much screen time, but Tim Greven won by 8.2 seconds. So once he got that lead, we didn't see him again. Corey Preston second after a hard-fought drive with damage by the looks of it after that first lap. Bo Albert in third and Mitchell McLeod in fourth after their race-long battle. Phil Reed in fifth. Great comeback through the pack there to be +8 on his starting position. Dave Roberts in sixth. Daniel Edmonds 7th, Ross Balfour 8th after all that shabozzle, if you will, in those first few laps. David Haynes 9th, +6th, and rounding out the top 10 is Scott Larnack.
Just realised I've done a great job and left last week's standings at the top of the screen as well. I've updated them, forgot to save them, so that's good. Daniel Brown in 11th, Michael Kirkham in 12th, only a tenth of a second separating those guys, with James Foster in 13th, Mazomo in 14th, Sadler 15th, and then our DNFs, unfortunate for Scotty McQueen to Jackson Susan Harlow as well, and David Lord unfortunately did not take the start. But what a fun night of racing we've had again for TCR. Next week we head back to America, to Road America. I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be an interesting track to have for this series, as Tim Greven tries to do some reverse donuts, didn't quite work, and that's the wall.
Yeah, I think Road America is going to be a very interesting track. I have personally only ever raced there in iRacing in the rear-wheel drive cars, and some of the parts of that track, you've really got to use the rear end to square up the car as you're coming through some faster elements. So it'll be interesting to see how these TCR cars deal with it, but I think you were telling me last week, Jay, that every track that is in the schedule, almost every track that's in the schedule for this season is actually a TCR track around the globe, which is a really cool fact. That we're racing cars here in the sim that are being raced all around the globe at these real tracks that we've got in the service. So that's your tidbit for the night, if you will.
Obviously, if I turn my mic back on to talk, yeah, you're right. Every track we run in the series is run in a real-life TCR series. Of course, we do use the TCR Australia track at the end of the series. Of course, at Phillip Island, we head to Mosport with Zandvoort, Lime Rock, Mid-Ohio. We go to Barcelona. A couple of weeks' time, we head to Donington, running the national circuit. That is the one I'm looking forward to the most out of the rest of the season. Donington Park and Oulton Park were the two that I was looking forward to the most. I thought they were going to be the coolest tracks. So it's going to be good fun rest of the season. I'm looking forward to this Thursday night. It's quickly becoming one of my favourites.
I definitely agree. I look forward to commentating this series and watching it unfold in front of us. And there's some great racing. You know, these cars, they lend themselves to being to squirming under brakes and being a real hassle to handle, which just makes it more fun for us up in the box. These guys are probably sweating in the sims and everything at home, but we're having a great time, and all the viewers at home watching it. So we've got some really cool and special tracks coming up on the calendar, as well as I think we've got the Catalunya track coming up as well in the club layout, I believe, which is a very short but fun layout. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Another 10 weeks after this one.
Yeah, and that's a big few days here on SimSpeed TV as well. We are live every day right up until next week for this series, so you will not miss any action here on SimSpeed TV. Tomorrow morning Australian time, we are live for the Geodesic GoPro Championship. This weekend, Saturday night, Sunday during the day, Australian time. It is the big one. It is the holy grail of Australian and New Zealand sim racing. The V8 Scops Bathurst 1000. It is going to be awesome to be back at Bathurst for the V8 action for the V8 Scops Championship again. Monday night, of course, we have the V8s as well. Tuesday, just send it. Wednesday, we are back for Sprint Series Australia, thanks to Epiroc. As we said, next Thursday night, we are heading back to America, to Elkhart Lake, if I could speak English. It's been a struggle to do that tonight. And hopefully I won't be in the box next week, but if things go to plan, I won't be in the box, and you'll have someone that actually can speak a bit better English than me. But thanks, Brock, for jumping in tonight. It's another awesome night of racing.
No worries, man. Always happy to jump in the box, and yeah, it is absolutely awesome. And on the topic of everything else that SimSpeed and iRacing Esports Network do, pretty much every night there's something on. Get on your YouTube, watch it. The Scops 1000 is always awesome, broadcasted by SimSpeed, so definitely get on that, guys, and I'll see you guys next week.
Yep, we cannot wait. Thank you very much for tuning in. As we said, we will be live tomorrow on the iRacing Esports Network for the Geodesic GoPro Championship. Until next week here on SimSpeed TV, we thank you very much for tuning in, and we will see you at Road America.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going with the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to him.
Oh my God! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys I want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go! Oh no!
That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?